Have you ever wanted to live underwater or just be able to breathe under there? Yeah, me too. The Walrus and the Carpenter by Lewis Carroll. The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. And it was so odd because it was the middle of the night. The moon was shining silkily because she thought of the sun had no business being there after the day was done. It was very rude of him, she said, to come and spoil the fun. The sea was wet as wet could be. The sands were dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because there was not a cloud in the sky. No birds were flying overhead. No birds were flying. The Walrus and the Carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like everything to see, such quantities of sand. And if they were only cleared away, they said, it would be grand. If 7 maids with 7 mops, and shook his heavy head, meaning to say he did not choose to leave the oyster bed. But 4 younger oysters hurried on up, all eager for the treat. Their coats were brushed, their faces were washed, their coats were clean and neat. And this was odd because, you know, they had no feet. 4 oysters followed them, and yet another 4, and thick as fast as at last, and more and more and more. All hopping through the frothy waves swept it for half a year. Do you suppose, the Walrus said, that they could get it clear? I doubt it, said the Carpenter, and shed a bitter tear. Oh, oysters, come and walk with us, the Walrus did vicious. A pleasant walk, a pleasant talk, along the briny beach. We cannot do more than 4, to give a hand to each. The eldest oyster looked at him, but never had a word he said. The eldest oyster winked an eye, and scrambled to the shore. The Walrus and the Carpenter walked on a mile or so, and they reset at a rock, comically slow, and all the little oysters stood and waited in a row. The time has come, the Walrus said, to talk of many things, of shoes, ships, and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot and the weather pigs have wings. But wait a bit, the oysters cried, before we have our chat, for some of us are out of breath, and some of us are fat. No, hurry, said the Carpenter. They thanked him much for that. A loaf of bread, the Walrus said. This is what Chiefy needed. Pepper and vinegar besides are very indeed. Now if you are ready, oysters dear, you can begin to feed. No, not us, the oysters cried, turning little blue. After such kindness, that would be a dismissal thing to do. The night is fine, the Walrus said. Do you admire the view? It was so kind of you to come, and you are very nice. The Carpenter said nothing, but cut us another slice. I wish you were not so quiet, so deaf. I've had to ask you twice. It seems a shame, the Walrus said, to play such a trick, after we brought them so far and made them trot so quick. The Carpenter said nothing. The butter spread too thick. I weep for you, the Walrus said. I deeply sympathize. With sobs and tears he sorted out these largest sighs, holding his pocket handkerchief before his streaming eyes. Oh, oysters, said the Carpenter. We've had a pleasant run. Shall we be trotting home again? But answer come none. And this was scarcely odded because they had eaten every one.